Alright guys, welcome back to Strong Successful Male. So for today, I'm going to read an article titled, Are Men Biologically Hardwired to Chase After Much Younger Girls? Myths, Science, and Social Conventions Behind Male Attraction. And guys, this article, to absolutely no surprise, is written by a woman, and essentially she's not very happy about how men are attracted to the younger gals. And here's the interesting part. Take a wild guess. Think hard here. What she used to do when she was younger. If your guess was that she dated older guys, then pat yourself on the back because you're correct. She's mad about male nature, guys being attracted to and going for the younger gals. Meanwhile, when she was younger, she did the same thing. She was an active participant in this phenomenon that she thinks this is a great injustice and so wrong and blah, blah, blah. Total hypocrite. And I'm doing this article, guys, aside from the fact that it's a Saturday morning, and give you guys a good laugh for the weekend, but just to show you just the nonsense out there, the BS, and just no accountability, etc., etc. here. At the end of the day, and in this article, guys, she is going to try to use some scientific research to disprove the whole idea that, men are biologically hardwired to be attracted to and drawn towards the younger gals. Meanwhile, pretty much entire human evolution has shown that, guess what? Men are attracted, they're visual creatures, they're attracted to what they see, a great body, pretty face, youth, fertility. It is what it is. Just the same way as women are hardwired to be attracted to the most dominant, strongest alpha male of the group, if you will. Kind of like in nature, how the females want to breed and mate with the strongest male. That way then they can be with their children will have the strong genes and so on and so forth. It's the same thing. But with us, it's more, it's not like the toughest guy is going to go out and fight for her and, you get my point here. I'm watching what I say here on YouTube, but nowadays it's the guy that obviously, while they do like guys that are strong and that can definitely fight, nowadays it's the guys that have resources and the guys that have success. But it's also, very importantly, what's behind the resources, money, and success. It's the drive, the ambition, the all those type of qualities, leadership qualities, etc., etc. So women have what they're biologically hardwired to be attracted to, and men have what we're hardwired and attracted to. But she's going to try to use science to this one little study to disprove the whole thing, as well as shaming men and a bunch of BS like that. It's ridiculous. It is what it is. Women are attracted to what they're attracted to. Men are attracted to what we're attracted to. Stop trying to fight it. Stop hating on guys and make us out to be the bad guys. And also, not once does she blame the gals for being young and going for these older guys. Not once. It's always, we're the bad guys here. Anyhow, I went on long enough, so I'm going to get into it and do my part in tearing this apart. She says, I was only 16 when I started dating a man significantly older than me. Right there in the first sentence. She did the same thing. He was in his mid-30s back then. Yes, that was legal. The age of consent in my home country, like in the vast majority of others. Of course, just because it was legal, it doesn't mean it was right. But my 16-year-old self didn't think twice about it. He was a DJ, he traveled a lot, and he had a, wait for it, motorcycle. I thought he was cool and that he was enough for me. So, what you're complaining about in this whole article, you did. Needless to say, neither of these things would impress me today. That's a bunch of crap. Come on. But they sure did when I was a teenager with little or to no life experience. And even though I was just that, an inexperienced and quite frankly stupid teenager, I used to hear that I was mature for my age and an old soul from the mouths of older guys. Two common BS phrases used by, I'm not going to use the word she says, and groomers alike, as I found out later on. Well, you know what? It's not always a BS line, because I've known gals that were younger that definitely were certainly very mature for their age. Now, women obviously mature physically before guys do. We all been there. We know this. And there are some that definitely have matured in elements. I'm going to emphasize elements of their personality because maybe just their circumstances growing up, or I don't know what. But or maybe they're putting on a very good act. Who knows? But I've known some that were like that, and they definitely were different. But it wasn't the common thing. It was rare. But to make it out to be that's the common thing that guys use to say that, no, not always. She says, but I didn't know that back then, and how could I have known? I was never given a manual on how to be a young girl in a world full of creeps. I thought that was normal, older men and younger girls. You see it everywhere after all, but why is that? And to what extent can you explain the type of attraction with biology? You see it everywhere because that's pretty much how things have been since the beginning of time. It is what it is. Men are attracted, we're visual creatures. You know, you hear the gals talk about all the time how, oh, men are so shallow and superficial because it's all about looks. Looks. That is generally the top thing in our list, if you will, if we even have much of a list, of what we're attracted to and we look for. A woman can be really cool, genuinely cool and fun to be around and successful and do well for herself and all that. But if she doesn't meet, now the beauty is in the eye of the beholder, but our bare minimum standards in the looks department and body type department, that's it. Doesn't make a difference how many great qualities she has. Meanwhile, when it comes to women, looks are important. Let's not BS ourselves here. However, looks is not always the top of the list. It'll get you in the door, but if you don't have confidence in who you are, if you don't have a spine and a backbone where you stand up for yourself and will call her on her BS when she tests, and she will test, when you don't have any drive or ambition or all these other qualities they like, the looks are only going to get you so far. It may get you a fun night, maybe two, but that's about it. But if you don't have the other qualities, so a lot of times looks is not the number one quality. Some are, but generally most gals, it's not the deal breaker for them. They don't want their guy looking like Quasimodo, but he could be okay looking, but if he's very confident in who he is and take charge and blah, 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 and doesn't kiss her butt, doesn't put her on a pedestal, and has some swagger, okay, he can be average looking. But with a guy, average is like, no thanks. If a guy can get better looking women, he's not going to choose the average girl. He's going to get a much better looking girl. They're attracted to. We're attracted to. Enough of this. But, as you're going to see, she's not getting the attention she once did. Hence, this is the real reason for the article if you read between the lines. She's describing here the Lolita Effect. She says, many, if not most, people don't find anything shocking about older men dating much younger women. It has become common and generally accepted within our society. And one of the reasons why is that popular culture normalized and even romanticized these relationships. They are showcased by movies, books, reality TV shows, grocery store tabloids, and Hollywood hookups. Think the movie Lolita from 1997, based on a 1955 novel of the same title by Vladimir Nabokov. Let me know if I pronounced that right. The entire dating history of Leonardo DiCaprio and a pantheon of dad-bodied, middle-aged Hollywood men and their Generation Z lovers. Even since that, a pouty-lipped Lolita fantasy became pervasive, which some dubbed the Lolita Effect. I'd even go as far as to say that it's become expected of older men to seek younger girls actively, because it telegraphs, I'm still young, relevant, and can get the hottest piece of ASS around here. Somebody's spiteful. But with the rise of high-profile S-word misconduct cases involving older men and underage gals, and she's going to mention some guys, I'm not going to say their names because that literally could trigger things in YouTube, but she says it's hard to ignore this kind of predatory blah, blah, blah of the young gals. And as more survivors of underage S-word torment, so to speak, and grooming come forward, it starts to sound like an over sexualized and exploitation. I'm watching what I say here, guys. She says, it's an epidemic. Most men find younger women to be more desirable. One recent study looked at nearly 200,000 heterosexual users of online dating apps and found that while men's desirability peaks at age 50, women will hit their prime at 18. Yes, that was the lowest possible age in this research. A different study conducted by a dating website found the median 30-year-old man spends as much time messaging teenage gals as he does women his own age. The conclusion from both of these studies is quite straightforward. Most heterosexual men find much younger women, even teens, to be the most desirable. Now, my opinion, for God's sakes, number one, they better be illegal where you are, okay? Let me make that clear. You're out of your damn mind if you're talking to or whatever someone that's not legally an adult. And the other thing is this, is that, it's interesting how you see this all the time. There could be guys in their 40s, so to speak, dating a 21-year-old. And don't get me wrong, she could be smoking a hot body, pretty face, young, all that stuff. But unless she is exceptional in terms of maturity and all that, what the hell are they going to talk about? I mean, seriously. What the hell do they have in common? There are exceptions, but really. But he's on cloud nine because he's got a young piece of ASS. And she's on cloud nine because she's got an older guy, and obviously he's going to have some resources and maturity and all that. Let's be honest. Everybody gets something out of it, okay? Now, there are plenty of gals that like older men. Plenty. And this whole idea, and the way she's going to go into this is going to be playing the victim card, is that they're all victims to these horrible older guys. It's just not true. I've said this before in other videos, guys. I wouldn't be here doing this video for you today if this wasn't the case. My dad was, I believe, 24 years older than my mom. 23. They're 24. Their first date, he was 45 years old. He was a doctor. He was recently divorced, a few years divorced, and met my mom. She was a nurse. Talk about a stereotype. And on their first date, she was 21. 21 and 45. My dad was extremely popular at the hospital. All the young nurses liked him. Very charming guy, good-looking guy, took care of himself. It didn't hurt that he was also in the military, or retired from the military at that point. And he's just a very charming, likable guy, and they all liked him. And they were 20-some years younger than him. Do you think that at any time they ever felt like they were victims or anything like that? No. My mom was very mature, okay? And they clicked. They really did. So I don't like this BS victim crap. I wouldn't be here for it. And they had a happy marriage, and a long one. Anyhow, she says here, and from my own experience, these findings make sense. I was getting a lot of attention from older men as a teen, even when I was as young as 13. Well, that's screwed up, and I agree with that. Then less so when I was in my early 20s, and even less so now in my late 20s. There you go. There you go. She's getting a lot less attention now that she's in her late 20s. 20's still a prime for a gal, but that's getting close to 30, and things definitely change when the 30 comes around. Believe me, I know many gals in my life, know them now, and have known them in their 30s, 40s, some in their 50s. They look darn good for their age. They take care of themselves. They work hard. But it's not the same as their 20s. And notice how she mentioned here in this article how different studies, they show that a man peaks at 50. So I tell you young guys out there, if you're frustrated because when you were in your teens and even your 20s and you weren't getting a whole lot of attention from the gals, you're still going up the totem pole. Your peak is decades from now. I mean, I'm going to be 44 in a couple months and still my peak isn't here yet, according to the study. So cool. I really don't give a crap about that anymore, but according to the study, my peak is I still got a few years to go before I reach my peak. She goes on, as our youth and beauty fade away, so does the attraction from men. And that's because we live in a, wait for it, patriarchal society that still equals women's worth to her looks, which are presumed to diminish with age. Well, people's looks do diminish with age. And that's it. Father time, you can't fight him. You can't fight nature. And this goes to that now she's making out to be the men or the bad guys because we're not as attracted to a gal as she gets older. And remember here, she just admitted here she's not getting the same attention as she was when she was younger. I think this is the reason behind this article. Shaming tactic. In the past, that could make sense when women didn't have any rights and in most cases couldn't bring anything else to the table, like money, status, or power. The thing is, we do have rights, not everywhere and not entirely, but it's a massive improvement from the situation a century ago. Sure, youth and beauty will always be attractive to everyone, not only men. But women are not actively seeking much younger partners as often as men. Why not? Women, nowadays, it's become a lot more acceptable and common. It's not like you see it all the time, but it's more acceptable and common to see an older gal with a younger guy. Chick in her 40s, maybe 50s, hooking up with some dude in his 20s, early 30s. And she's getting something out of it. Obviously, a much more energetic guy in the sack. And he's having fun with having his little cougar fantasy. Everybody's happy. The difference is that's not going to last long term unless he's got like mommy issues. Because eventually, if he wants to actually have kids and all that, he's going to pick a younger girl. So, and she mentions here like the issue about money, status, and power. Well, men aren't attracted to that. They can think it's cool that she's successful and done well for herself and all that, but that doesn't. Men aren't attracted to these things, money, status, and power, the way a woman would be about a guy. Because what's behind the money, status, and power? Ambition, drive, purpose, confidence, leadership skills. These are all qualities that women find very attractive in men. Confidence. You can't get all those things unless you inherited it. You're not going to get these things unless you actually have some confidence behind you and ambition and drive. Masculine energy. There you go. When women have these things, these also come from masculine energy. And last time I checked, most men are not attracted to women that have a lot of masculine traits. I've known women that can remain in their feminine and have had success, but it's a balancing act. She says, now we're going to get into the so-called science behind which she's arguing is BS. Says, how much of this attraction can be explained by biology? Some people claim that this type of relationship occurs so often because men are biologically hardwired to pursue younger women, since they are more fertile and because of the good old men are more visual than women. Newsflash, it's true. Is there even a grain of salt in any of these claims? Even though it's a common presumption that men respond more strongly to visual stimuli than women, this is just a scientific myth. The latest neuroscientific research shows that neuronal response to visual S-word stimuli is entirely independent of biological sex. And it's the societal factors that play a much more significant role in men's visual stimulation rather than anything related to our biology. So this is one study. And whenever I hear about a study prove this or study prove that, I always ask, okay, what is the politics of the researchers conducting this study? Or what's their views on the thing? Are there any biases there? What is the research or bias or politics of the people funding the research? Are those people funding the research going to be very happy if the findings are something that goes against their views or how they think things ought to be? These are important questions to ask whenever you hear the results of a finding or study. A lot of people don't do that. Like, studies have shown this. Well, let's dig in to the study here. And you're going to have this one study to pretty much say that entire human evolution of how things have gone is wrong. You see it everywhere because that's just how it is, how we're hardwired. And the same way women are hardwired to be attracted to and drawn to what they're drawn to. A lot of guys don't like it. A lot of them get fed up. A lot of guys on here that watch me, I read the comments. It is what it is. Women are drawn to and attracted to what they're attracted to, and men are drawn to and attracted to what we're attracted to. Get over yourself. She goes on, as for the other piece of conventional wisdom that states that men are evolutionarily predisposed to want to F women at the peak of their fertility, it's a rather poorly documented claim. Newsflash, yes we do. Those on Team Evolution use the prevalence of the pattern as the only evidence that is universal, and those of Team Society hypothesize that the difference in preferred age for a partner is the product of societal determined gender roles. Here we go. Dragging in some attitudes of the movement. One study even suggests that it's precisely this preference for younger gals that cause older women to become infertile in the first place. Yes, this means we could possibly blame men for menopause. Oh my God. Well, how about all these gals nowadays that spent their prime years riding the carousel or being career women and passing up countless good guys, or even girls that are relationship girls in their 20s, are constantly passing up really good guys because they're attracted to, let's be honest, the bad boys. Or they're trying to get the best possible dude they could get. And because of the endless supply of dudes through dating apps and all the attention they get on social media, it's like literally when you're sitting there in front of the TV and you're trying to find a show and you're like, next, because you have so many options, you can't make up your mind. And next thing you know, you spend 45 minutes trying to find a show. I'm sure you guys have been there. And it's like, well, shit, I got to go to bed in half an hour and get up and go to work. You wasted your time. It's the same thing here. All these options, next. Can't find a guy. Next thing you know, they're in their 30s and 40s. And they have plenty of great guys. But now they're complaining because suddenly the dudes aren't as into them as before. And they're, obviously, if they get pregnant now, it's a high-risk pregnancy because they're now in their 30s. They haven't reached their family goals. Well, why are you blaming us? You have plenty of options. Plenty of great guys out there. And I want to hear there aren't any good men out there. You blew it. You were like the channel trying to find out the right show. 45 minutes trying to find the right show. I've done this shit, believe me. I'm sitting there with dinner and my food's getting cold. I'm looking for a show. Go back to the microwave, nuke it, come back, looking for a show. Food gets cold again, goes back, finally find a show after nuking my food 3 or 4 times. I've done this bullshit before. I'm sure many of you have too. But nowadays I know what I want to watch before I sit down at night and watch a show for an hour and a half. But anyhow, it's the same thing. And blaming us for becoming infertile and all that, come on. No. Take some ownership. Come on. Y'all were too picky, and this is what you have. Anyway, it says, now we all know that correlation doesn't imply causation. This pattern's existence is not enough proof that biology plays a part in men's attraction towards younger gals. Bullshit. And if team evolution were correct, then men would choose younger partners too. Excuse me. And if team evolution were correct, then women would choose younger partners too. Men's fertility declines every year after the age of 20, as with women. It takes a 40-year-old man nearly 2 times to achieve a pregnancy with a woman at peak fertility. Again, it's a myth that men remain fertile all their lives and can parent children as long as they can perform sexually. Well, men can be very old and can have kids. It's just like okay, fine, it may take a lot more work, but they can. And this part about, if this was accurate, the women would choose younger partners. Well, like I said, it's because there are women now that are dating younger guys, but it's not going to go on forever unless that dude is a special case and he's attracted to much older women. And in a way, I think the gals do it now. It's almost kind of like an FU to the guys, so to speak, for, God forbid, she's 40, she's pretty for her age, but they'd rather go with a 30-year-old or a 28-year-old. It's like an FU to the guys saying, fine, I can date 22-year-old men too. And she can have fun, and the 22-year-old can have fun, but the odds are it's not going to go anywhere beyond that. And ultimately, they would prefer a guy their own age. So no, you can't really use biology as a driving force behind men's attraction towards younger women. There just isn't enough evidence to support this argument. What do you mean there's not enough evidence? Look around. Look at all human history. That's all the evidence you need. And I might add, before there was the internet or communication or movies or anything that people could observe other people, this was going on all over the world, where people didn't have anything to do with each other or knew of each other's existence. Going back to early man, the men are visual creatures, and the younger gals. It is what it is. But one thing is clear: scientific myths about men's sexuality tend to stick around because they make sense in light of traditional social roles and gender ideology. So something else is at play here. I met my much older ex in a club that was well known for a spot for teens and students. From the perspective of time, it became clear to me that the only reason someone much older would come to a place like that was to pick up younger girls. But why? According to traditional understanding of gender roles and masculinity, men are expected to be the strong, assertive, and dominant providers. How much easier to be one if your partner is dependent on you by default of their age? Well, last time I checked, women like strong, assertive, and dominant partners. Those are the types of guys that generally the women want. Now, it's unpopular to say so nowadays because of the times, and I don't need to elaborate there, but really. Last time I checked, I didn't see any gals standing in line for guys that were weak, passive and submissive. No. The only gals that go for guys like that are the really masculine ones that want to dominate the guy. And we know what type of the movement those type of gals are fans of. No, thank you. She says, I thought my ex was great simply because he had a job, sort of, and drove a motorcycle. He also had more life experience than me and was most likely more emotionally and mentally mature. Not that he made a mature choice by going to a party for teens, but because I was incredibly immature at 16 years old. Well, 16 years old, I'm sure she thought she was very mature. And don't get me wrong, I mean, she said that she was 16 at the time the dude was in his 30s. To me, that's fucked up. And I'm saying it here. But, and some people can say, well, it's just a number. And that's what society put a number on. Okay, fine, but still in my mind, that's fucked up. But 20, 21, she can go to have a drink. I have no problem with that at all. The dude's 45 and she's 21. I don't know what they're going to talk about, but okay. Says the thing is, most teenagers and young adults are. Research on brain development confirms that most people don't reach full maturity until the age of 25. Yes, 25, not 18 as we once thought. Well, I would believe that nowadays, observing the young kids that are in college and all that. But in my opinion, a lot of it has to do with how they were raised. And this helicopter mom generation that raised all these Generation Z types to feel that didn't raise them for adulthood. Because believe me, in my experience, I look at the maturity level of people when they graduate high school, when I graduated high school, compared to how they are now, it's night and day. The maturity level that people had when I graduated high school is like the maturity level that kids have when they graduated college. And where does that come from? So she's trying to make the case that the studies are saying that maturity doesn't develop to way later on. Believe me, my mom's generation, they were graduating high school at 18 years old, and a lot of them were immediately going into the workforce or going in the military, and they were getting married at like 19 years old. And believe me, they had a way more maturity. How would I know this? Because I asked people of the older generation. So that's just an excuse. In my opinion, it really boils down to upbringing. It says here, men who actively seek much younger gals and simultaneously refuse to date women their own age aren't looking for an equal. Somebody's getting mad because she's running out of prospects. They are looking for someone with less maturity, opinions, and agency than grown women. Someone to control, manipulate, and possibly take advantage of. That's not true. I'm not saying it's not impossible, but I'm saying that is not the norm. And when we talk about control, manipulate, and possibly take advantage of, guess what? These young gals realize quite well, the reason he's with me, primarily the attraction, is because of my young, hot body. So I can certainly use that young, hot body and use sex to manipulate and get whatever I want. So I don't want to hear about the men are the big villains here. This isn't peak bad behavior. I don't know what is. Luckily, even my clueless 16-year-old self could feel something was off about the relationship. I ended it very quickly and tried my best to steer away from much older guys from that point forward. Yeah, sure. She says, the more gender equality, the phenomenon ceases to exist. If men and much younger women's relationships are driven by traditional gender roles and stereotypes, does it mean there are fewer of them in society with greater gender equality? One study on age differences between spouses in 37 countries in light of those countries' scores on the UN Gender Equality Index confirms precisely that. As gender equality increased, men expressed less preference for younger gals, and consequently, the difference in the preferred age of mates became smaller. Well, maybe because the older guys are realizing the attitude of the young gals nowadays and are like, not with all the BS that they've been brainwashed with. Maybe that's part of the thing here. And that's because with greater gender equality, the need for traditional gender roles diminishes. Yeah, how well is that working out? How well is that working out with marriages nowadays? The ones that do get married, let alone people are putting off marriage longer and longer, which I got no problem with. But the point is, guys are walking away from it. They're walking away from relationships. They're walking away from marriage because they don't want to deal with the BS. And the level of narcissistic behavior out there among the other gender is just too much for so many guys. I'm not saying every gal is like that, but an awful lot. It says here, sadly, full gender equality exists only in a handful of European countries. Everywhere else, traditional gender roles are a well-established norm, and relationships between older men and younger women are all too common. Get over yourself. Even though it's ultimately no one else's business what happens between two consulting adults, there's an idea. I do think that perpetuating the belief that men are biologically hardwired to desire and date younger women is exceptionally toxic. Get over yourself. Stop shaming all these people because you're not happy. Stop shaming people because you're running out of options. You said here you're 27. Guess what? You're not old. Okay? You still got a few years before the evil 3-0. If you take care of yourself and lose this attitude and stop walking around being so bitter, I'm sure you'll be more than fine. She says, firstly, because it contributes to over-sexualization and exploitation. I'm not going to say the other part, many of whom are underage. And secondly, it too often serves to frighten gals, to make us grateful for the male attention we receive and warn us that it could also evaporate within a few short years. Because following that logic, you might invest in decades-long relationships believing you were loved for your true self, only to find that it didn't matter anymore once you became a woman of a certain age. Men would normally be tempted to stray to someone else with firmer breasts and shinier hair. Look, that's going to happen, and it goes both ways. You're not telling me that women stray? How many stories have I done? Personal stories, stories online, articles. The guy thinks his marriage is great, and guess what? She's having relations with the boss or his best friend or something awful like that. Okay? You make it out that men are going to be the ones to stray because she was getting older. Let me tell you something. Most guys that are married, if she's cool and treats him well and she's loyal and she minimal nagging and minimal drama, there's going to be nagging, there's going to be drama. But I'm minimal drama, minimal nagging. She takes care of herself. She goes to the gym. She eats well, eats healthy. She's thin, healthy looking, takes care of her skin, keeps her hair long, dressing well. The odds are he's not going to cheat. He's not going to kick her to the curb when she turns 45. As long as there's a healthy sex life, amongst many other things. But are there some guys that would do that? Sure. But the majority aren't, because they don't need to deal with that crap. So you're going to make it out to be that all guys are immediately going to just whoosh, get rid of their wives because they're getting older. Well, if they're doing that, there's other reasons why. It's probably her attitude, or her ass has become the size of two asses. Yeah, she puts on 75 pounds and she has an attitude and she chops her hair. These are things that are definitely going to make a guy go away. But if she's taking care of herself and she's cool and loyal and loving and all that stuff, it's not going anywhere. Come on. He says, conveniently, it's not their fault. It's just their biology. That's BS. It's 100% their fault. Back to us being the bad guys. And a man who believes that a woman his own age is too old to love isn't a man. He is a man-child at best. Shaming tactics. Where's the blaming of the gals for dating the older men? I haven't heard that once in this whole article. The claim that men are biologically hardwired to chase younger gals is mostly an assertion of power cloaked in scientific myths. More than being hardwired to do anything, men are simply given societal permission to pursue much younger gals. And patriarchy plays a role in this too. It always goes back to blaming the patriarchy. As Susan Sontag wrote in her 1975 essay, The Double Standard of Aging, she says, taste is not free, and its judgments are never merely natural. Rules of taste enforce structures of power. Whatever. So, there you go, guys. Another article I've done. I do this every once in a while just to show you the mindset and the attitude. Making men be the bad guys because we're attracted to younger gals. Okay? And like I said just a moment ago, if a guy, if he's married and she takes care of herself and she's cool and all that, he's not going anywhere. Come on here. Some might, but by and large, they're not going anywhere. Meanwhile, she puts on 75 pounds, chops her hair, bitching and complaining and nagging and all that stuff. Then he might go. Absolutely, if he can, if he has options. And yes, men are attracted to younger women. But guess what? Younger women are attracted to older men. So get over yourself. You're in your late 20s. If you take care of yourself, you can get guys. But stop trying to the shaming tactics. It's ridiculous. It's outdated. Everybody's sick of the shaming tactics. The whole how things are today is getting old real quick. With especially a lot of people that are, I would say, middle age and up. The younger generation still is sucked into this whole. You know what I'm talking about? How things are nowadays, and it's certainly already showing up in the politics. At least it did with the election they had a week or so ago about how people are getting very fed up with a certain party that these woke, I'm going to say here, mindset and blame game is associated with. And it'll be very interesting next November, the midterm elections here in the US of A. But anyhow, that's a conversation for another day. I try to minimize politics on this channel. But anyhow, guys, thought it'd be a good one to go over here, give you a good laugh for a Saturday. That is it for today. Be sure to comment down below. Let me know what you think about this. And be sure to like the video, share with your friends, and subscribe. And I'll catch you next time.